First love is hard, especially when it spirals out of control. My first love was 4+ years during that crazy transition time from the end of high school through the beginning of college. It was an unhealthy relationship. He was never physically abusive per se, but looking back, it was incredibly emotionally and verbally abusive. But I loved him, and he had a lot of serious psychological issues, so I was willing to stay long past that relationship's expiration date. My sophomore year of college, I was studying abroad. That first real love boyfriend I mentioned before, yeah, he and I had actually broken up months ago, but we still talked almost every day, and he still had some sense of ownership over me. It was a Thursday night, and I was at home in my apartment, Skyping him. He was back in the States. We got into an argument because a friend of mine had posted a photo on Facebook of me and a guy I'd recently gotten friendly with. Over the spotty internet connection, my ex said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised that you're slutting it up like that. We both knew how you would be after this." After some back and forth, I hung up in rage. I was so hurt and angry. I just wanted to run away from my feelings and thoughts of self-hate and shame and disgust in myself and in him, and literally years of deep-seated emotional pain. I just wanted to distract myself. So I tried to rally. I tried to convince my roommates that we should go out and party. I was close friends with these girls, and I trusted them. But when they expressed no real interest in going out, I called this other American girl I had met on a weekend trip. She had that reputation of being that girl that was always down to party. I got dressed and waited for her to come by. I didn't even really know her that well, and I certainly didn't trust her, but looking back, it made sense why I would call her. We drank a little in my apartment, some cheap, awful-tasting wine, before we headed to her friend's place a few blocks away, some guys I'd never met. All American, all studying abroad just like us for the semester. We talked about tattoos. He told me he had a big one of a waterfall falling down his back, wrapping around his side. And he told me he was a cop. I guess he looked like he could be a cop, so I trusted him more readily than the others. Let me be straight, though. I'm a 6-foot-tall female, and he was like, maybe 5'4". Just not the guy that I would pick out of a crowd. It's not like I wanted anything to happen with him. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Honestly, I was still thinking about the boy back in the US, and I was still sad, so I kept drinking. After a few hours, I found myself at the second, or maybe it was the third bar of the night with the same group of people. I was drunk, and definitely not being as smart as I usually was. There were 2 guys hanging out around me, and I was definitely getting creepy vibes. They didn't realize that I could understand the southern dialect they were talking in. One of them said the equivalent of, "Yeah, you could fuck that one," gesturing to me. I was scared. I remember the moment of recognition that I had gotten myself into a dangerous situation. I just started to cry. Not a lot, just a few nervous tears. I remember thinking about my mom and what she would say if she were there. She'd be disappointed in me. And I remember thinking back to that awful Skype conversation and telling the cop that I'd never been that drunk before without my boyfriend back in the States with me. I'm scared. I still miss him. The last thing I remember is the cop putting his arm around me and pulling me close and saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." And then nothing. Total blackout.